Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, y'all, it is Wednesday, hump day. Like the title says, it's the best hour of your week. You know what time it is. It is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces with Mark Boatwright-Frost. How you doing today, sir? How you feeling?
I am awesome.
Nice.
And yourself?
Well, you know what? I'm doing a lot better than I was last week. I was under the weather, but, I'm back.
Yeah, we were all under the weather this weekend.
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm ready to go. I couldn't miss 2 weeks in a row. That would be a travesty.
Awesome.
So, yeah, no, I'm here. I'm ready to get to it.
Awesome. And when I say we were under the weather, I just want to recap. We were at the Sustainability Fest in Tacoma on the 16th. And it was well attended by Washington Weather. We had all of Washington's weather on the 16th, outdoor at Tolleson Plaza in Tacoma. We had rain, we had sunshine, we had wind, we had ice. We had everything that they had. But it was very well attended. It was a lot of fun. I talked to some great people there.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm glad you made a lot of connections. It's actually still a little chilly in here. I'm going to try to take my jacket off and not shake. I hate being cold. I don't like being hot either, but
we'll see what we can do.
I
get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That middle zone,
The middle zone, exactly. Like, where is the middle zone? So let's see.
Hey, BK, how you doing? Okay.
Oh, let's see. Oh, hey there, BK. How you doing today? So, how do you eat an elephant?
Let's see. If I remember correctly, you have to eat it with some ketchup, right?
Oh, man.
Stop the cap.
One bite at a time.
That's right. One bite at a time, which kind of leads right into, our topic for today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's what we're going to get into today. So what is our topic today, sir?
Our topic today is one neighborhood at a time.
One neighborhood at a time. All right.
Yep.
One neighborhood at a time. What do you mean by that?
And let's talk about that. In the last 7 years, I've been working on this and looking at different ways that people will look at change and the way people think change happens. And we could speak an hour just on the lack of understanding of civics in this country. But we tend to look at things as too big to think about, so we don't engage at all.
Mm.
And when you got a huge elephant in the room, let's say any number of elephants in the room, and I think we can say that there's a herd of elephants in the room, and one of them is like climate change.
Right.
It is too big for people to think about. So they think that big people or people in big places are going to think about it and address it. They're hoping, praying, being faithful that people are going to take care of it. And being a historian to some degree, I have to say that that's never happened. The only time things really change is when people come together. And the only way you can change it is one bite at a time. You have to build small. You have to create understanding. You have to create context. And the best way to do that, as far as we can see, is one neighborhood at a time.
Okay.
So a few years ago, and I just want to say this in preface to this statement, I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I don't talk about what my belief system is. This is specifically a example.
Okay.
Okay, in the 2016 election, we had essentially three choices. We had Donald Trump, we had Hillary Clinton, and we had Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders didn't make it to the finals, okay, to use a sports metaphor, but his ideas did, and they pushed and changed things. What I've always maintained is the failure of politics is to get people on the street, one person at a time, to understand what those ideas are and how they engage.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you need to talk to people. You need to actually engage. And it's hard to do that when you're pointing at the color red and the color blue and say, I believe in red, I believe in blue, but you're not really talking about the things that matter to humans.
I think another issue is making everything a zero-sum game, right? So in order for my interest to be met, you have to give up your interest.
Right. And in this case, you don't have to give up anybody's interest. You both win. And okay, so you and I both watched Beau the Fifth Column, and he had one on this morning that was interesting. There's a law that just passed in Tennessee, is on the way to the governor's desk, that basically criminalizes homelessness and fast tracks homeless people to be put in the prison system. And his contention is that housing the homeless or providing shelter for the homeless is cheaper than housing them in prison.
Wait. Are you saying that backwards? It's cheaper to put them in prison than it is to provide them
No. It's cheaper to provide them housing than it is to put them in prison and pay the prison system to support them.
So then why put them in prison?
Because politically it allows people to believe that they're doing something about homelessness. And since most people, the vast majority of people, do not understand the cause and effect around homelessness, they're thinking they just want the homeless people off the streets, and they don't care what the situation is. And they don't think of the homeless people as people. They think of them as objects that need to be removed, like the trash. So putting them in prison solves the problem for a lot of people that don't understand that they could be one paycheck away from being homeless themselves. So when he was talking about that, I'm thinking about it, says, well, that doesn't sound like a win-win situation. That sounds like the taxpayers are going to be paying a lot more money to deal with homeless people in prison than it would be just to do the humane thing and come together to provide shelter for them. And the services, the mental health services and the support services that would put them back on their feet.
I'm listening. I'm just
I'm saying, so the thing is that sometimes the win isn't obvious. But there is a win if people come together and start looking at the more human-centric things. Okay, we have agencies, and please understand, I'm not in any way denigrating these agencies.
Well, hold on. Before you go forward, let me just push back on that, because we don't have someone here that's for that, right? So we don't have the pro side to that argument. So tax dollars are going to be spent, right? And we ultimately don't really control where our tax dollars go, right?
Exactly so. But we do more so on the county and state level than we do on the federal level.
Right. As a given, but the defense budget and things like that and whatnot, right? We don't ultimately control that, and they kind of push money where they want it to go. And so if I'm the person who has the position of, look, these homeless people are driving down my property values, they're a danger to me and my family, I can't go to parks, I'm paying taxes anyway, and while it would be cheaper, just go ahead and remove them from society, and maybe they'll dry out while they're in prison. Maybe you do some recidivism programs or anti-recidivism programs so that when they do come out, then they can get established and then get housing. But the problem is gone, right? And so the folks that I would believe would be for that. The
problem is invisible.
One check from home.
Yeah, let's modify that statement a little bit. The problem isn't visible. It's not gone. It's just not visible any longer.
Well, but as a proponent, it's invisible to me. I don't have to see it. I can go to the opera, the symphony, and I don't have to walk past homeless people that are asking me for money. I don't have to see the tent cities.
Yeah, it's true. And you kind of made my case for me, is people don't understand the cause of homelessness. They don't understand they don't look at them as people. They look at them as things driving down their property values. And I get that, and that's exactly the statement I made. So for a lot of the people in Tennessee, this is a clean sweep It's not a humanitarian sweep, but it's a clean sweep to solve the problem. It's not, and it's more expensive. And it kind of goes back to my statement about politicians not really solving problems. They just make them vanish so that their voters feel better. And we need people to really solve problems. Climate change can't be sent to prison. It needs to have real solutions to the problems, and we have to look at it in a very clear way and have clear discussions. And our politicians aren't ever going to do that.
Yeah, and and I'm with BK on this. One is how can I get involved and to start making a change in my little corner of the world, and then what are the options? But before we jump on that, I think what we miss, we have the opportunity, right? Because at this point, I think we believe that we hold the high road morally in this, looking at this issue.
Not how I'd say it, but okay.
Well, we're on two sides of the coin here.
Yeah.
I think where we lose out is there are bad actors, right? Then you have folks that actually see that as a solution. Look, we've tried throwing money at it. We've tried housing first programs. We've done this, we've done that, and none of these things are working, and it's expanding, right? So let's go ahead and do this. My constituents that have money and can have their voices heard are saying, do something, and this is what we do, and it's cool, So if it's not going to be a zero-sum game, I think it's important and incumbent upon us who seem to be more awake and aware of the humanity in this.
My God, did you just say we're woke?
I don't think it's a bad thing, but that's a whole other thing, But from a humanistic standpoint, if it's not going to be a zero-sum game, then how do we get into the mind of those that say, hey, you know what, this is actually a viable solution? So what is
one
it
neighborhood at a time?
And then, well, but that's general, right? We have to start to put it in a microcosm, put it in a vacuum and say, okay, so why are they agreeing to this as being the option?
Okay, so first of all, let me give some context. It's going to take time.
Go ahead.
It's got to take time. It's going to take time. It is. We had generations and generations to get here, and it's going to take a long time to get out. And even if it's intentful and we get a whole movement going, it's going to take some time. So we need, and that's my phone. Sorry about that. Let me put that where we'll get into the speakers. But talking person to person is really the only way that's going to happen, because there's so much misinformation. You have to build relationship and trust. And by the way, I'd like to go back and answer BK's question really quickly here. BK on Facebook, if you go to the Kitsap Resiliency Project, that's where we put a lot of the information about what we're working on. So feel free to go there and like it, and you'll see some of the work that we're doing. And since Marwan is president of Resilient Ecosystems, which drives the Kitsap Resiliency Project, he has a lot to say about that as well. Okay, so our whole idea about one neighborhood at a time is that we bring people together. We bring people together and we start getting them to think in a human-centric way, and understand the win-win that happens when people are working together. Where I was heading before is kind of an example of this, is that we have several agencies in this county that are around economic development. And as far as I can tell from working with them over the years, they predominantly generate paperwork to ask corporations to move here. But is that really economic development?
Short term.
Short term, but long term, isn't economic development developing local resources and capacity?
Yeah.
One of our projects, the Food for All project that we're trying to get off the ground, could provide as much as 1,000 jobs here and create a local industry all built around developing food security and food. If we do the Power for All, that'll create hundreds of jobs around installing solar and drive the localized power grid. This is real economic development, yet that's not what the top-down model does. The top-down model fills out paperwork and sends them to corporations asking them to move their headquarters here. When a politician tells me about quality of life, I don't really know what they mean by that. When I talk about quality of life, it's that I know my neighbors, that I have secure food, that I know the jobs are growing in the area, that we have localized as much of the structure that we need to survive as we can, and that it's available to us more often than they are now. To me, that's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we looking at here, Marwan? Now that
So what we're looking at here is I just went. BK was asking about statistics in other countries, and so this is the
okay,
National Alliance to End Homelessness .org, and so I put that in the chat. And so they have some stats here. And so the first thing that I looked at was what are some of the causes of homelessness. So again, looking at it from the other perspective, I think what we need to do is many times, people don't look at the other side of the argument, right? And so that's why I'm saying in
right,
negotiations. So it was one of the classes I used to teach at the college. And so a shrewd negotiator, an effective negotiator, doesn't just look at their own interest. They need to understand the interest of the person that they're negotiating with, right? So you're
yep,
trying to not make it a zero-sum game. And people often look at negotiations as being, I need to win and you need to lose, or I'm going to lose and you're going to win. The problem with that is you might win this time, but that is going to affect the relationship the next time you need to negotiate with that person, right? So you really need to look for win-win solutions and not a win-loss solution. That's why I talk
right.
about, zero sum.
Win loss is extremely short term,
Right.
and you usually lose in the long run.
And unfortunately, negotiation can result in some win-loss, right? But
Yeah,
when you can articulate the benefits of, hey, we're going to do it this way. And yes, this may not be exactly how you want it, but these are the things that you get here, and this is how this is going to help you. Neither side really does that. We just kind of yell at each other and just say, no, you're inhuman for thinking this way and doing these things. And, oh, you're throwing money down the drain and you're not being fiscally responsible. And, whatever the arguments are on each side. But no one actually really takes the time to say, you know what? Why don't we actually analyze each other's point of view and have that conversation and really understand what the interests are? Because oftentimes when people go into a negotiation, they don't really understand their own interests, right? So, as a quick story, was a teaching exercise I would teach to my negotiation students. Say there's two chefs, they have a big event coming up, and they both need 200 oranges, right? And there's only 200 oranges left in the whole county. They can't go anywhere to get these oranges. So they start talking with each other and they're like, look, I need the 200 oranges. No, I need the 200 oranges. So what are we going to do? If I give you the 200 oranges, I can't serve my dish, so I can't even modify my dish and do 150 oranges or 75 oranges, right? And so you've got this win-loss. Someone's either going to win or they're going to lose. Well, what ended up happening is as they were talking, they started talking about what they were actually doing and what they were cooking. And what they discovered was one person needed the orange juice, the other one needed the zest, the rind from it. So they both could actually have their 200 oranges. The problem is that we never really talk to each other to find out what the true needs are or to investigate what our true needs might be or other options on how we may be able to, ascertain the things that we need. And so
welcome
when
to
you
our
talk
taker
about
culture.
one neighborhood at a time, one bite at a time, I think that is a critical first step.
Yep.
We think we understand our position. Do you understand the other position? Can you argue the other person's position? Because then you can deconstruct it and then present options and alternatives in that way.
And in some ways, it's so much more complex than that. As I just told you, Marwan, and to bring everybody up to date, Marwan and I actually haven't talked in 2 weeks, and so he just found out that we have released our Resilient Community Playbook, which talks in depth about this very subject, and it talks
Mhm.
about other things like part of the thing that we have going on in our country is, and you've heard us talk about this before, is cognitive dissonance. The
Mhm.
ability to believe the two things that are mutually exclusive are true and hold them in our head at the same time. Um, so when you start trying to have that conversation with somebody else, it's a question whether they can even hear you or whether you're going to trigger their cognitive dissonance by saying something that goes against an ingrained belief system. and they can no longer hear you, and the negotiation is then over.
But I don't think you're
And so
going
we
into
talk.
the negotiation in the beginning, Mark. I think, the first step is, and that's the part when we actually don't listen. We hear, for the break so we can jump in with our counter argument. I think in the
which is where I was
beginning.
heading.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. It's like in the beginning of the
Which is where I was
conversation,
heading. So
you just need to listen.
we talk about cognitive dissonance, and the way to get by cognitive dissonance is to spend more time listening than talking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're paying attention and listening to the person, you can pretty much see when they start gearing up because of something you said, and it gives you an opportunity to back down from that and talk to them until you find a place where you have a common ground and that you don't trigger them. Or you don't get triggered, because let me tell you, I am just as likely to have cognitive dissonance as anyone else is. It's an epidemic in this country. It's part of our culture. And we just have to, if we're going to get by it and have real conversations, we have to learn the skills of listening and communicating, understanding that that's a reality.
Right. And to that end, I think having that conversation and not only listening, but listening for understanding and comprehension, right?
Yes,
Them to get to the
absolutely.
point where they're saying, you know what? The best option is to lock these people up. Why do they believe that? Do you understand? Do you really understand that? And not the cynical, they don't want to see it, rich elites, whatever the case may be, property values. What is the reason that they believe that? Was it a situation where many of the most vocal were victims of violence or vandalism or property damage from homeless individuals? What is it?
Or is it just a political stunt to pander to the base?
Well, I mean, again, you're kind of going down to the cynical side to it. That's what I'm saying, that you have to listen and then reserve your assumptions, to see maybe it is that. But
yeah, and quite honestly, I have not read any of the documents around this, but I do want to parallel this with what Texas has done now twice, and you talk about a win-win situation. So Governor Abbott in Texas sent a few months ago, it's guard to the border to incursions, and the Texas National Guard ended up suing the state of Texas, unionize, because of the issues around that decision and the abuse of the Texas Guardsmen. Now Texas has the governor has signed to have a second level of customs at the Texas border managed by Texas. And the end result of that is that fruit and vegetables are rotting on the other side while waiting to go through this model, which means our food prices are going to go up. And parts that are coming from Mexico are not getting to where they need to be, and Texas businesses are hurting. I think we can honestly say that this political move to pander to a base of people that hate brown people on the other side of the border is actually business in Texans. And to the point now that the Texas Republican Party is looking at censure.
Interesting.
So finding a win-win, that means that you're right. You have to analyze the other person's reason for doing what they're doing. And part of the reason of, are they trying to get reelected? Are they pandering to people who will actually vote for them? Or are they actually trying to solve a problem? And once you understand that, then you can start putting together strategies of how to deal with it.
Well, again, I think how you frame it is important, right? So when you say, are they actually trying to solve a problem? I think they would.
Well, what problem are they trying to solve? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right. They may not be solving your problem.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to get to, right? And not in an accusatory way. You're really just trying to understand and comprehend it. But you have these town halls or forums where these conversations can happen, and it just ends up being just kind of a, can I one up you? Can I get my talking points in? And no one ever really can discover what it is that folks are actually trying to do. Because I don't think, And I would say there are people on the left and the right that feel this way. So I don't want to just paint the right with this brush. But, I don't think folks are so inhuman. They're just like, you know what? I really don't give a damn about these people. Lock them up. I don't want to see them. They brought it on themselves. They may say that in some of their exhaustion and having to fight back against arguments and feeling like they're not being heard. But at the same time, I think because we're in a position to be conscious, if you don't like woke, to say, you know what, someone has to acquiesce here and listen first, right? Because
Yep.
otherwise we're just going to keep doing this and we're never going to solve the situation. So someone has to say, go ahead, just keep knocking against me, let it all out, let me hear it, and let me suspend my thoughts, my ego, right, my interest, and really understand what it is the issue is, and then try to figure out how would I solve your problem based on the way that you think and what you value, right? And how then
Yep.
can I present my solution to that problem where it is a win for us?
Absolutely. And I'm kind of curious about what's going to happen when the challenge in the Supreme Court happens. Is right now, the Supreme Court could be considered a toss-up which way it's going to go in regards to the Constitution, but I question the constitutionality of that law.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I am not a constitutional scholar, so don't take anything I say at face value. The question I have is what that's going to look like. Also,
Well, I
it
think
is
the problem
my
is for it to get to the Supreme Court, they keep it in place until it gets overturned, right?
yeah.
Is that how that works?
So for now,
So
yeah, pretty much.
yeah, so folks are kind of getting harmed, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, which court puts a halt on it until it goes to the Supreme Court, which could also happen. They can block the enactment of the law until it goes to the Supreme Court. The biggest issue here is it is my belief that we are not going to see the end of homelessness and that it's going to continue to grow. Because homelessness is partially based on economy, and we're moving into a place where everybody's at risk. I mean, the numbers I've been reading are saying that 46 million people in this country, which is a significant percentage, are at risk of homelessness within one paycheck. If they lose their paycheck or something happens, they could lose their home. The eviction moratorium has gone by the wayside, and waiting to see what happens with that. I mean, there could be a whole lot more homelessness on the streets soon.
And as Mark is talking, I'm just going through the point in time count changes by state from 2019 to 2020. And you can see this is not just a blue state issue. Homelessness is up pretty considerably. In the places that it's down, it's 1%, 2% here, which is one of the highest I've seen so far as homelessness being down. But you're seeing a 20% increase. You're seeing like a 13% increase. I mean, these numbers are pretty high here. 14% increase, and we don't even have 2021 or 2022 numbers here. 20% in New Hampshire, 12% in Utah.
And I wonder how much of those declines are due to COVID.
Yeah, 6% in Washington. So this definitely is its own pandemic, if you will. And to your point, Mark, with the eviction moratorium being over, the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, tensions with China and North Korea, we are expending resources like no one's business right now. Immigration concerns and issues, money is just flying out. We have uncontrolled inflation. We have food prices, gas prices. All these things are happening, and it's all happening at the same time. And I don't think we're gonna, sadly, be in a position where we're really going to answer the bell, and so many more people are going to fall through the holy net as it already stands as we go into midterms and into the next presidential election.
Well, if we don't start doing something now, nothing's going to happen, and we'll be exactly where we are. Except it's not nothing that happens. We have a continual decline.
So let me go ahead and then rewind back a little bit and go ahead and click on, BK's question. What are the options? What do we do?
Okay, so part of the reason that we wrote the Resilient Communities Playbook is to start teaching people how to have those conversations, how to get by cognitive dissonance, how to recognize the challenges that come together when you're trying to get people to talk to each other and get people to work together. I mean, you and I are talking about network neighborhoods and the block parties we have coming up, and I realized that something had to be written to give people an idea that one of the reasons we don't do this now is fear, it's cognitive dissonance, it's our taker culture, it's the win-win, all of the things we've been talking about. But you can overcome those if you can recognize them. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to back down a little bit from your right woke stance and listen to people and bring it down beyond politics and religion and skin and all of the others that othering we do, to the point of what's human, what do we have, and I said this a bunch of times this weekend. I don't even know if I've ever said it here, but I've literally talked to you that everyone I've talked to on three things universally.
Okay.
Food on the table, shelter and warmth, and security for their family. Those are pretty human things.
Are those not in order, or?
Yeah, they're just the three that everybody came up with that in our conversations that I marked down, because I mean there are other things that they care about, wealth, security. And I have friends in the Ukraine who right now are worried about a whole lot more than that. But when it comes down to it, they're still worried about food on the table. They're still worried about security for them and their families, and they're still worried about security over their the shelter and roof over their head and warmth. But now shelling is part of that equation. Estonia, I have friends in Estonia that have, everybody said the same thing. And this is to give context to this. I have conversations with people in building relationships with them and getting to know who they are. And I ask questions about what's important to them and listen to them. And this has come through every time. These are the three things. And I talk to people in the US, same three things. And so when you have three things that everybody can agree on, there must be more. And if we can start going to that level of thing and having that conversation about things that are important to us to survive as humans that we don't feel secure about, then we can have a different conversation and bring people together. And during that process of coming together, we'll find other things that we have in common, things that we want to have as humans. We have talked on this program about food security, and Abbott's little thing about the secondary level of customs aside, millions and millions of tons of food are dropped to rot every day when the price changes, when a port dispute happens. And yet, isn't food one of the things we need to survive as human beings? I mean, water, we can live without food for like a couple of weeks, but with water, we die in 3 days. So we have Flint, Michigan. There was just a report came out recently that said I can't say most, but a great deal of municipalities haven't really dealt with the water issue or the water quality issue for a very long time. They can talk about it leaving their plant, but then they've got 70-year-old pipes like the one over on Kitsap Way that burst the other day that are delivering water to your house. I mean, when you're sending water through 70-year-old iron pipes, what's the quality coming out the other end? I don't remember them setting filters up at the neighborhood to filter the water one more time before it comes to your faucet.
Did you say this in Kitsap County?
Yeah, there was a
la. I do not hear you. I'm drinking water right now.
Yeah, and I filter. I have like the high-end pure filter in my that I drink from at in here in the house. So it filters out all contaminants and heavy metals. But yeah, okay, I get that, BK. And I drink only filtered water here because I don't trust the water that comes out of the pipe. Besides, it tastes nasty. But with Flint, Michigan, There's places in West Virginia. There's places in California. More and more reports are coming out. I think I've got an article on the Kitsap Resiliency page all about that came out from the Guardian this year, actually. So yeah, if you go to the Kitsap Resiliency page, again, I put a lot of articles up there. If you don't want to know, don't go to the Kitsap Resiliency page. Don't engage with us, because we have serious conversations about the things going on so that people are aware and we can come together and have conversations about how to fix it. If people can't live without water, shouldn't we have secure, clean water coming to our house? I mean, if that's what we're expecting from our politicians, shouldn't we have that together? That can happen.
So let me ask you a question, because first you talked about the three, right? Food, shelter,
Yeah,
and what was the other one? Safety.
let me answer this question really quickly. They are not available in audio on our site, but you might check with the actual source and see if they are on the source. Yeah, okay, so food on the table is generally number one, because people have around the world are dealing with food security.
Mm-hmm.
Shelter, because given, and as I say here, it's not a given, because many of us, a good chunk of us, are one paycheck away from poverty and possibly homelessness, and then security for a family. I mean, okay, so your office is down in downtown Bremerton.
Correct.
And I've gone down there around 8 o'clock at night, and it's kind of scary sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so security, I mean, I don't worry too much about my security down there, but Terry, who's all of 5'2", she worries about her security when she goes down there. It's a little scary out there. There are a lot of places that are scary around, and that's in Bremerton. And Bremerton's actually pretty good, because we're a military town compared to, let's say, East Los Angeles or some other places I've lived in my life. So in Oakland Hills, I mean, in Oakland, it's a little scary sometimes.
No, we don't have to go to Oakland. Let's stay here. So,
Yeah.
I'm a property owner, right?
Yeah.
I'm a resident, and I feel vulnerable, and I don't feel safe. So I would like you to remove the homeless downtown Bremerton. And the solution is, you know what? You've tried to help through the Salvation Army and the Rescue Mission and all these different programs, and none of these things are working. So go ahead and arrest them and figure it out on the other side. But I need to feel safe. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I'm a taxpayer.
Yeah,
So
and those organizations that you discussed are all getting 4% of the income of the United States to do all of that work.
Right, but I'm an individual, so I can't do anything about that. My heart bleeds for the 4% that they're getting, but you need to make me safe. So go ahead and lock these folks up. So what's your response?
Yeah, the response is there's no. My response or the response? Which one would you like to hear?
Yours.
Mine. It's not practical or possible to fix that problem with the resources we have and the will that we have. So if you want to fix it, come have a conversation with us, and let's talk about what the source of that problem is, and then let's get together and push our politicians into actually solving the problem.
Yeah, but I need to feel safe now, and this is a pretty immediate solution. If you're homeless and you're committing vagrancy or whatever they're going to charge folks with, go ahead and take them off the street and lock them up. And on my side, I'm looking at it like this. One, what do I get out of it? I'm safe. My property doesn't get damaged. I don't get damaged, right? My property values don't decrease. And at the same time, I am a humanitarian. So at least these folks don't have access to drugs and alcohol. And maybe after some time in there, they can get some help. And then when they get out, they're clean. They can get some work, and housing can help them transition them in. And you know what? It's been 3 degrees above freezing for the last week or so. So wouldn't that be the most humane thing? Because these folks aren't making the best choices right now, and they should be sheltered, because that is like the number one thing. So yes, it's kind of against their will, but this might be the best thing.
I can see that you believe that. or that you would like, you want to see a solution to the problem, and you feel humanitarian. But let's talk about the other side of it, and looking at the win-win. Your property values may go up, but so will your property taxes, because someone has to pay to incarcerate and support those homeless people.
That's fine.
And so therefore,
that's not really a great argument, because if my property taxes are, $3,000 a year, and let's say they went up 33%, another grand. Well, that also probably is going to mean that my property went up $50,000 to $60,000. So that's a good trade-off for me.
Well, yeah, until you try and sell it and you find out that it's not actually worth that.
What are you talking about? Well, this is a seller's market right now. You see what properties go
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to sell your property tomorrow?
No, but I could suck the equity out of it.
Yeah. Good question, BK. We'll get back to that. I had a conversation. I'm going to shift just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and he was all this and all that about how he was buying homes and selling homes and setting his retirement up in the stock market. And he and my sister were going to be just really well off, mm-hmm. and be able to live the rest of their life. My mom went through working at, I'm going to ask about that in a minute, Dan. My mom worked her life at the UC system, and she thought she was going to be fine. So my brother-in-law was getting ready to retire from a pretty good job that he had most of his life, and Enron happened, and he lost 50-60% of his investments. He now lives in Idaho someplace, and in a much smaller house in a much cheaper environment than California, where he came from. You can't depend on tomorrow, and that's something that and markets that are not controlled by you. So my mom, who thought she had all of the retirement she needed in her life to live like a queen from the time she retired, well, she did really well for about the first 10 years. Now she can barely afford to live in a home. Because the prices kept going up and inflation. And most retirement plans don't account for the amount of inflation we have and cost of living increases we have. So when somebody starts talking to me about, well, that's fine, and it is for now, but the market isn't always going to be like it is now.
So what I would argue there, staying in that space, is that's why you have to have a diversified portfolio, right? You need to hold hard metals like your gold and silver. You should have some cryptocurrency. I'm not a financial advisor, so don't take it as such. And you need to, have your hand in oil and some other things, pharmaceuticals. Even though these things.
Well, that's what the homeless people did. They had all their bank in pharmaceuticals. According to a lot of people's point of view.
Oh, I see. Haha. But you know what I'm saying? So you've told two anecdotal stories, and that's not the plight of everyone. And at the same time, we cannot just not plan for the future, right? And plan for our retirement. And we understand that the market can be volatile, but we have to do the best we can. And we still have to solve the issue of today, which is I don't feel safe. I can't go downtown. It's affecting my property values now. So right now, no one else has come up with another solution. We've already poured billions of dollars into homelessness. So yes, right now, go ahead and lock them up till we can figure out something else. And again, it's the most humane thing to do because they're not in an abandoned house. They're not out in the street. They get a chance to dry out. And then maybe those resources should be provided in jail to give them job skills, job training, work on their soft and hard skills. And then when they transition into housing, because you already kind of have the system built up, right? You got a halfway house. So why not build it like that and then go ahead and do it?
Yeah, I need to bring this out at this point. Dan and other folks that are listening to this, Marwan plays devil's advocate, and we talked about a law in Tennessee where Tennessee has now criminalized homelessness and is on its way to sending. Yeah, agreed, Dan. Um, Marwan's basically playing devil's advocate to bring the other side of the argument up. Uh, and for those of you who don't know, my basic philosophy, I'm a big proponent of moving to a Star Trek economy. And for those of you who don't know that, there's actually several books written on Roddenberry's plan for the future. And I think that we need to start working on sheltering the homeless and then providing shelter for everybody across the board. But we're a long way away from having that conversation. And it's not a conversation I am willing to have with people right now because it's too hard to get by all of the luggage we all carry, baggage we all carry, from our political point of view, our education, our indoctrination, and everything else. So I want to start small with the one neighborhood at a time, getting people to agree on a few human commonalities. And so Marwan really doesn't believe that homeless people should go to jail. Matter of fact, his organization G2 feeds homeless people and gives them transportation. So just for those of you who don't know him and don't know our relationship,
Yeah.
I kind of want to make sure he is not Lex Luthor, okay? Any more than I'm Superman, but
and Dan, you may have come late into the podcast, but as we're trying to address these issues, the whole reason why I went down this thought of conversation is the law that is being passed. We know that there are a lot of people that think and feel this way, and we really need to get to the crux of what the actual issue is that they have, and have an understanding, and then find a way to have a conversation with them and not have it be a zero-sum situation, right?
And I'm saying the conversation has to start farther back.
Yeah, and tell them that they're wrong and everything else, and they very well may be. But if you tell someone that, they're gonna close down.
Cognitive dissonance. You're going to trigger it, and the conversation's over.
And we do need to have, everyone has talking points, but we have to understand, have a really good grasp of what the issue is, right? And then how to resolve those issues, and then agree to say, you know what, we're going to try something. That's kind of how, I run my organizations is, let's think and plan. We're going to try something. And if it doesn't work, we're going to try something else, or we'll modify what is working, reject that, and modify and build something in until we get what it is that we're trying to achieve. And I think that's important. So sometimes we get analysis paralysis, where we just continue to talk and talk and talk and nothing ever happens, or we just kind of fight, and just, have our both interests are going at each other.
Or choose the simplest answer just to do something.
Right. And so going back to the one neighborhood at a time, BK had a question, how do we start the neighborhood block party, organize a crime watch? So my proposal is to do the first block party next Thursday. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, Mark. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Good. Now you're going to throw one right at me, are you?
I've been throwing them at you all hour.
And I've been listening the whole hour.
I know, it's great.
So, and for those of you who don't get, a lot of what Marwan's doing is when people start going down a path and they don't want, and they're intractable on it, I listen, because at some point there's going to be a lever that you can use to have a conversation with them. And we've been modeling that for you. And as I hear the property value, I try to lever there to see if I can move it. As we hear different things, I'm listening for places where we can find commonality and value together. Because really it is about finding a win-win. Everybody has to win for it to move forward. Otherwise, somebody loses and it stops.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think? Do you think we can pull off the first one next week? Next Thursday?
Well, we'll just roll up our sleeves and make it happen, won't we? Is that the one you want to do at your house? So we have to talk some logistics.
Well, we ordered the griddles and everything yesterday, so we spent a little penny there to get that going. We had a conversation about it, and then like I said, I tried to call you yesterday We have someone that is going to canvass the neighborhood and knock on the doors and let them know what we're doing. And then, of course, I'm
Okay.
right by the college, so we can invite the international students and the athletes that are staying in the dorms over here at OC, which is awesome. So I think pretty much we're ready to go. It'll be about 54 degrees with only a 20% chance of rain.
As far
So
as we know now.
yeah, well, knock on wood. I think it could work.
Okay, cool. Awesome, and then we can model it for the other things.
Yep.
So to answer BK's question is, first of all, start talking to be on the Kids Up Resiliency page. I'm in the middle of a purge of Resiliency Rocks, which is our private group for developing projects and bringing people together. It turned out we had too many lurkers on the page, so I've started purging people who have never done anything. And just as a quick pitch for both Marwan and I, as you look at our stuff, like, share, comment, because the algorithms look at that and we can't get our message out if people aren't doing those things. So just want to say that. I mean, everybody, thinks that, oh, well, that's really cool. We're doing all this work, but unless you like, share, comment, question, we really can't move forward and get it to a broader group. So please do that. Where are we at, Marwan?
Oh, I'm just showing Resiliency Rocks. So
Oh, okay.
Click on it and ask to join. Just kind of showing some
Okay.
of the things there while you're talking.
Yeah, and by the way, we have this one. This one right here is we just finished the Resiliency Playbook. It is only available through Patreon at the moment. We are asking people to, and this is going to be a conversation in a couple weeks. Actually, or is it next week? We're going to be talking about community ambassadors, Marwan. Is that next Thursday or next Wednesday?
No, you wanted to skip a week for community ambassadors. I think which would be great because we'll have the potluck and the community ambassador, neighborhood program, and then we can discuss it and then have that conversation and talk about, wins and losses or wins and learns. We don't lose.
Yeah. For people who don't know what Patreon is, it's a platform set up to support artists mostly. But we do a lot of work for people. And we figured it was the best way for us to become to get funded. So we have put the Resiliency Playbook up there. One of the benefits is if you become a community ambassador and support us at $25 a month, what happens is you get support from us. So you go through and you try and go out to your neighborhood and have a conversation. You can message us. We'll set a meeting with you. We'll talk to you through any of the hiccups. We'll talk you through strategy, and we'll help you go through the process successfully and help facilitate that. So that's just part of what matters. We have some people that put a lot of really good stuff on our page. Colleen Traxton puts a lot of great articles. Marwan put some good stuff on. Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff on that, but we also use the Resiliency Rocks page to build the projects. We also have classes on there in what they call anyway, there's a classroom section of it that we go through. So it's a good place to go check out. And if you ask me, if you become part of the Kids Up Resiliency Project and ask me, I will invite you to Resiliency Rocks.
Absolutely. I love it. I got to say, I missed our conversation last week.
Yeah, that was a good conversation because we were talking about the playbook and what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in fairness to Rob, he got it 15 minutes. He got the draft 15 minutes before the meeting, before the podcast. So he was trying to catch up on the whole thing, but it was a good conversation all the same.
That's good. And, and it's important to have other voices also. So, if you do want to appear on the show and have the conversation and bring your puzzle piece, please let us know and reach out. We'd love to have you have a conversation. Business pages aren't allowed to join Resiliency Rocks.
Yeah. So it has to be a person. A person involved that can be invited as an ambassador to Resiliency Rocks from your business. Also, I think, Marwan, you need to talk about next Wednesday because people should be invited to come.
Sure enough. All right. Every fourth Wednesday is our Pancake Breakfast. free food, awesome community building. That'll be Wednesday at 11 a.m. That is April 27th at New Horizon Ministries, 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203 in Bremerton. We will start serving at 11. You're free to stay as long as you want. You can come in early if you want. And what we do is we run both of our shows. So at 12 o'clock noon is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces with Mark and myself. And then at 3 p.m. is Bremerton Housing Authority, Kitsap Community Resources, and Kitsap County. And they come on. West Sound Treatment was in attendance last week. Of course, New Horizons there. Kitsap Strong was present. Surviving Change was present. So there were a bunch of organizations that came out. So please come and have a free lunch next Wednesday. Yep. Every fourth Wednesday, we'll have a pancake breakfast. And so come on.
Which may or may not have pancakes.
That's right. There will be some gluten-free options, because of Mark's dietary needs. And then I actually think the cook is whipping up like frittata or something else. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, coffee, orange juice, all the fixings. Come, socialize, meet us in person. We do the show while we're eating and having a good old time. So please come on down.
Awesome.
And I should put a phone number up if you have any questions. You can give us a call at 360-373-3000. And I'll pop that up if you want any details, or if you want to email us at gather2grow@g2g2.org. And again, that is gather2grow@g2g2.org. That phone number is 360-373-3000.
Woo!
Oh, look at that. It is 12:59. It is the best hour of your week. You know what I'm saying? I have to be biased. I'm supposed to love all my children equally, but this is one of my favorite shows to do each week.
It goes so fast.
It does, and it's such a stimulating conversation. So what do you want to leave people with as we take our bow?
Be kind to each other. Embrace your humanity.
All right. I like it. Well, that is the final word. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. Your host is Mark Boatwright-Frost of Reseco, Resilient Ecosystems, and me, the president of the same organization and the conduit here. I am Marwan Cameron. We will be back at 3 p.m. with Bremerton Housing Authority, KCR, the county, with an update from the continuum of care for the community. So this is 40 organizations that are working on the homeless crisis here in Kitsap County. So there are actually a ton. And so we will give updates from their meeting, which is normally from 2 to 4. So join us again. We'll see you next Wednesday. Plan on coming to the block party next Thursday. We will definitely put the information out and send out the address so you can come and join. And there's one last chance. Elbow cough? I don't know what that means. What is elbow?
By the way, look for updates on the Kitsap Resiliency page. They're always there.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.